Hey guys, I just got to welcome my friend here, Mr. Dennis Yu. I am so excited to introduce this guy to you. He is an internationally recognized educator and lecturer in Facebook marketing. He is the CEO of Blitz Metrics, which is a digital marketing company. He has spoken in over 17 countries, featured in, let me tell you, he's featured in the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, LA Times, Fox News, TechCrunch, CNN, CBS. I mean, it just goes on and on. And Dennis, you can fill me in wherever you feel like I'm missing a gap or anything like that. But Dennis, I always ask my guests to begin by telling me about themselves. Welcome to the Amen. Welcome to the Amen Unbowed. It's real people, real stories, and real inspiration. There's something about you right off the bat. I got to set the tone here. One of the reasons I was so inspired and excited to get you on this podcast is because everything you do screams authenticity. So in that spirit, I want you to tell me about who is Dennis Yu.
Thank you so much, Amen. I'm just a search engine engineer. I'm a math guy trying to make it in a difficult world. And did you know I didn't speak English when I was 6?
Wow.
And I was made fun of. And I remember when I was put in the class for special education children because they assumed that I was retarded. And I remember that the teacher, her name was Mrs. Gore, and she would come up to me and she'd wiggle my cheeks and say, "Oh, you're so cute and you're so dumb." And I couldn't speak back to her because I didn't have any words. I didn't know what the words were.
Wow.
My parents didn't want to speak English to me at home because they knew if they did, I would have a broken accent. So I learned English at school, and kids can be really, really mean without really knowing it. They just make fun of people that are different. And the kids, and especially the adults, would tell me, they would say, when you talk to, maybe you've seen this too, when they talk to a foreigner, they would talk louder.
Yes.
And so, as if somehow that's going to help me understand the words better. No, I don't know what those words are.
You're so right. It's so right.
I remember in 3rd grade, the teacher was passing back the results for a quiz, right? And she handed mine to me, and I said, "Thank you." And she thought I said something else, right?
Yes.
So I was sent to the teacher's office or to the principal's office because the teacher thought I'd said something else to them. That's not what I said. I was trying to say thank you. But the other kids, they would make fun of me because they'd say, "Hey, if you really like somebody, tell them this to them." And I didn't know. So I wasn't, sometimes they were actually helping me. Sometimes they were just trying to set me up to insult somebody. When you see somebody you ever been in a restaurant or some other place where the other party's talking about you and it's in another language, but they're talking about you.
You
don't know what they're saying, right?
Exactly.
So then I vowed, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to show them. I'm going to speak English better than all of them. And I studied the dictionary for several hours a day. And I read books for 8 hours a day, weekends too. That's what I did. I didn't have any friends. I just read. I went to the library in the morning. Maybe I'd go to school. So I'd read in the morning. I'd go to school. After school, I would go and study in the library until my father picked me up at 8 p.m. I was on my own. And I did this on the weekend too. I did this during the summer. And I read so much. I'll tell you one example. At the Palos Verdes Peninsula Library, which is where I would hang out in California.
Right.
They had a reading challenge. At every book that you read, they'd put a sticker next to your name. And there was a list of all the kids, and you get a sticker for each book that you read. After the first 2 days, I was ahead of all the other kids. And by the end of the summer, I was so far down. I was like 30 or 40 feet down the line. The other kids were only maybe, a foot or two, right? I'd outread all the other kids by an order of magnitude that they had to make more room for me.
Wow.
And long story short, I represented California in the National Spelling Bee in Washington, D.C. in 1988.
Incredible. That's a powerful story. That is a powerful story.
And I thank all the people that made fun of me, that rejected me. Because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have had the motivation to turn that around.
That's right. But you chose to use it as motivation, which kind of brings me to another aspect of you that I don't hear a lot about. Everybody talks about who you are now, who Dennis Yu is today. Because we appreciate it, because the Dennis Yu of today helps us out. It's like, what can I get from Dennis now? Like, you know what I mean? Like, Dennis has gotten here, but I want to know what got Dennis where he's at. In that spirit also, you know, my father used to say to me as a kid, for you to know where you're going, you got to appreciate where you're from. You understand? And you just told me a story of kind of where you're from. And it's not just demographically or geographically or anything like that. It could also be from your experience. So to what extent did your background play in that, in you becoming who you are today? You just told me what inspired you to stand up and face that potential adversity or adversity and made you a stronger person. To what extent did your background, where you're from, make the Dennis Yu that we know today?
I think it's everything. I think it's how you deal with adversity. And for me, it's been a lot of rejection. Right. And all of us here, we've had some kind of pain because we've been rejected or things didn't turn out the way we wanted. I was an athlete too. So in high school, I ran cross country. And my dream as a 14-year-old who didn't know any better was to go work at Nike. Why not? Right? I ran cross country. Right. I read the books about the founding of Nike and how amazing this culture was. And I thought, what an amazing company. It must be a company of a bunch of folks who just run all day and they're athletes and they have fun. I had no idea that there were businesses and offices and public companies and managers and the kinds of professional apparatus that happens in publicly traded companies on the stock exchange. I thought it was a bunch of athletes just somehow celebrating, right? Working out. No need to understand where the money came from.
Right.
And I was at the age of 14, I already ran a 3-hour marathon because I studied how the body worked. I studied mechanically how to get the most out of my body, from nutrition and sleep to biomechanics to everything that I could, to study it just like a math problem, studying it just like studying for the spelling bee, right? I take everything and I break it down into pieces and then I analyze and improve every one of those pieces to try to get the most that I can. That's what happens when I spot a problem. I don't, immediately it's like, oh, okay, there's a problem. I've been rejected. I was declined. I didn't succeed. Let's break that down into different components and then try to solve it and do even better. And I went to the Louvre in Paris. You ever been there, the museum?
No, I have not. In fact, I would love to.
Incredible. And one wing, in one of the staircases, they have Nike, the goddess of victory, right? That's where Nike came from, the Greek goddess of victory. And I flew out there to Paris and I took pictures of myself in front of that statue, the winged goddess of victory. Right. And I cut a bunch of swooshes out from my teammates' shoes, right? So I could get the little Nike symbols and I put them on the outside of a shoebox. That was my application. I'm sure when they got it at Nike security, they thought it was a bomb or something, right? I included essays that I wrote. I included pictures of me with Nike, the Greek goddess of victory. And I thought for sure I'm going to be able to work at Nike, right? And they wrote back, and it was Shelley Bridges. I remember her name because it burned in my memory so much. And she was the internship coordinator, and she said, "Thank you so much for applying to Nike. We've had so many applications that unfortunately, we can't interview you for a job." And I was heartbroken. I really, I just thought I couldn't see any other way except for Nike hiring me to work at the company. And I had tried applying many times during high school. I applied again during college, and every time I was rejected. When you apply to someplace, just like for college, and they return you the thin letter, which means it's rejection. The thick one, the big envelope means that yes, right? Yeah. So every time it was.
You're absolutely right.
It was the thin letter, like, oh no, right?
Yeah, you know where that's headed. Yeah.
Yeah, but I realized that was actually a blessing, because it was only 10 years later, after working so hard in the world of digital marketing and learning how to make websites and run ads and do social media, that I got a call from Nike saying, "We would like to have you guys come in," because they needed help with social media analytics, and they had problems that nobody else could solve. Right. And they saw what we had done for Adidas for the Olympics, because their headquarters are just a couple miles apart in Portland. Right. And they all know each other, right? So they said, "Oh, bring Dennis in and his team." because we want them to do what they did for Adidas.
That's right.
Adidas was my very best resume for Nike because I could say whatever I wanted. I could be a great athlete. I could know so much about the company. I could have a great resume, all this. But the thing that got us into Nike, and we got $1 million deal with Nike for analytics to build things that they didn't have, was Adidas doing the work for them. I would have never have thought. And that caused me to realize, you know, the rejection was a blessing, because if I had worked for Nike, I probably would have made $30,000, $40,000 a year. I probably would have been a low-level marketing person, right? Or a low-level website building person. There's no way, as an employee of Nike, I could have got $1 million contract.
You know what, Dennis? That brings me into this. It appears, just from listening to that story, you have a special relationship with rejection.
We are close friends, rejection and I. Oh, yes.
You and rejection seem very familiar with each other. But the way you deal with rejections, already, I get the impression is very consistent, right? So while you're talking about the story of Nike, I want you to touch on that, because this is something a lot of people face. Their relationship with rejection is always one-sided. Rejection wins. But in your case, it seems that you come on top almost every single time, right?
Yeah. If you don't quit, you win. So I don't give up. You'll see that I'll fail all the time. And of course it hurts. When you fall down, it hurts.
Right.
But I believe that as long as you continue to be in the game, you have not lost. You have just learned something else. And then the mindset piece, which one of my mentors taught me, I always surround myself with people who are very, very successful. So I always feel like I'm a loser because these people are very, very successful.
Right.
And they'll teach me things like, and I'd love to share everything that I learned from them, because it's like cheating, right? Because that's how I got the advantage, is that don't think of things as happening to you, right? Oh, this thing happened to me. No, this thing happened for me. Everything that happens for me. So getting rejected by Nike, or not being able to speak English, or I've been bullied several times for being Asian and for other reasons. And I view that as that happening for me, because there's some kind of lesson. Or if I don't get the thing that I want, it's because there's actually God has something better for me, right? So if I don't get this thing, it's because it's like the Nike thing. It's because I need to hold out for something better. I just don't know what that is. It might come the next day. Have you ever had something where you didn't get a certain deal or a certain contract or a certain relationship, and you were disappointed at the moment, but then later you had something better? You're like, oh, now I see why. If only I could know that now. If I could have that certainty piece now, I would save that in-between time of struggle and rejection and fear, right?
Usually people say, thank God that didn't happen. That didn't happen for me. I see that's what they wanted to begin with. You know, you touched on something there also that I want to dive into, Dennis. How do you define success?
Success is when you know you're in alignment with your principles and what you believe in. And a lot of people have the superficial definition, of course, of money and having lots of things, or the outward appearance of what appears to be successful. But I know some people who are very successful, and inside they're very empty. And that's the classic issue that we see in Western cultures. So for me, if you can look back on your life and say, I feel good about what happened. I feel good about the impact that I've made with people. I feel good that other people can say, the fact that I had a amen, that he made all the difference in my life. I look at the impact, for example, that you make, right? Where you are interviewing other people and you're sharing love. I'm always happy around you. Just have this energy, right?
Thank you.
We were hanging out in Bangkok, right? I could just feel your energy, and it has nothing to do with athletics or tires, right? Or even the story of the tire boy. That's fantastic. But it's something that you have that's so much deeper. And I think success is when you have alignment with that inner fire and that inner meaning, that mission of who you are. And when you can express it, it's like an itch that all of us have. And everyone has that itch. They just need to know how to define it exactly, and then how to spread that. Right.
That's wonderful. Like I said, when I spoke to you about this podcast, I said, Dennis, I got to have you on this podcast, because everything you do just screams authenticity. And it's like a breath of fresh air. even in the space that you're in right now, which is social
Yeah.
media, which is notorious for being inauthentic.
Oh yeah. Look at
You know what I'm saying?
Instagram, right? It's
I mean, Instagram and IG. And I'll
Oh,
tell a
yeah.
story. I'll tell a story. Like I say to every guest of mine that comes on the Amen Unbowed, you have to tell a story. I want to share a story of mine with you, Dennis. When I met you in Bangkok, Asia, I remember you walked in, everybody was talking, Dennis Yu's coming today. I'm like, who is this Dennis guy that I haven't met? And there comes this guy. He's not a 6'4". He's not massive. He's not big.
Yeah.
Very quiet, soft-spoken almost. But but has time for everybody. These are my first impressions. And I thought, oh, that's a nice enough guy. It's a really nice guy. And then we sat down and you were getting ready to give your talk, like you've done in over 17 different countries, by the way. And you were about to give your talk. And immediately, the way you went about it was you randomly picked out people's platforms and to talk about authenticity, right? I remember I froze at that moment and I looked in the room and a lot of other people were dropping, they were just dripping sweat. They were like, God, I hope he doesn't pick my platform. Because you were using the platform as an example of what's good to do on social media and what's not to do on social media. But that nice, friendly guy that walked in suddenly was like Darth Vader in that room. Everybody was, but what I love about it is that you started that speech really based on being who you are as a person and being unapologetic as to who you are. So that brings me into the culture of social media now. Let's talk about that, Dennis, because this is what, you're known for this and you're also known for the business aspect of it. This culture of vanity on social media where a lot of people would rather you see who they wish they were rather than who they were. And why don't they just work hard to be who they present themselves to be and be that person? Could you touch on that too? And I have a bunch of questions from a lot of people that knew I was going to be speaking with you today. I said, we're going to use every second of Dennis's use time today.
Of course.
So please touch on that culture for me.
It's funny because, especially with the young adults, their number one job, this survey's been done, this research, they don't want to be a fireman or a police officer or a chemist. The number one job is they want to be when they grow up, the profession?
Actually.
Influencer, right?
Influencer.
That's not even a profession, but that's what they want. That's what they put at the top of the list.
Right. Wow.
And that embodies where we now live two lives. We live our actual life of our friends and our day-to-day and our work and what we do. And then we have this social media, digital life presence that we have to maintain. And because everyone else is doing it, we feel the pressure that we also need to look like this. And thus I see people, we'll go to a nice restaurant. So we're having, I guess, lunch maybe with Matthew later today. Matthew Jad, you said. And when we eat, the food gets a little bit cold because we're taking pictures. And I say, Instagram eats first. Right? And
Instagram eats first. That's funny.
And we feel like we need to do this for this weird reason because everyone else is doing it. And so, because if we don't do, because if everyone else is doing this and we don't do this too, then somehow we are less. And thus, the more time you spend on social media, the more it makes you feel like you're less because people are selectively showing the best moments of their life and they don't show the struggle. And because they don't show the struggle, it's an overrepresentation, not quite to the point of lying, about where things really are. And you, Amen, and we like to be authentic, which means we show the struggle.
Absolutely. Right.
And when when was the last time on Instagram you saw somebody show the struggle, right? The failure, the rejection. I
think Instagram is a Showtime reel. I say it all the time.
Yeah.
It's a Showtime reel. Sorry to interrupt. Carry on, please.
Yeah, a lot of people think that all I do is hang out with famous people and go to exotic places. And I do hang out with famous people and have nice meals. But what about the other 23 hours of the day? Most of the time, I'm in front of my laptop, I'm working. When's the last time you see me on Facebook or Instagram or social media where you just see, videos of me just typing at the keyboard or programming, right? Or doing work, right? You don't creating meeting minutes or, figuring out a client strategy. Like you're never going to see that. You're going to see So a few minutes out of every day, we all have moments of highlights, right? Maybe we're
Absolutely.
driving by the beach and we see a nice sunset. Oh, let's stop for a minute and take a picture and then move on. But what people don't realize about you and me is that they don't see the 99% of where we're spending our time. They see the tip of the iceberg and not everything else that's below.
Right.
And because of that, and because of the way the algorithm works, and this is the same algorithm for YouTube, Netflix, Amazon, whatever is the most popular,
Right.
whatever gets the most engagement is the thing that gets pushed to the top. That's why fake news is so big. That's why we see political upheaval. That's why we see people being angry, right? Have you seen just in the general news that there's all these stories of people that are angry about, and I'm not making any political claim, just people are very angry, right?
Right.
Why? Because the algorithm, of which the media is a child of the algorithm, is going to show the items that have the most engagement. It's the media is just a reflection back of what is going on. And you could blame social media. You could blame the media. You could blame any of these things. It's all media. But I view it as we need to tell our authentic stories so that we can fight this tendency that devolves down into this fake boasting, which is what social media is. On social media, it's like you said, people are pretending to be something, this idealized self, and they don't mean to piss in the pond, but they're pissing in this pond that everyone else is swimming in.
Right.
So the collective weight of all this piss is horrible. I would never want to drink any of this, right? But that is what we have. And we need people that are sharing their stories of struggle to tell everybody it's okay to not succeed. When was the last time you saw a public speaker say, yes, I tried this one thing and I'm a failure? No, they only show success. Every time you see a story of somebody who's done something, it's always a story of how they're successful. So when people come to me and tell me how successful they are, or they want me to feature them in an article, because I write for some major places, I'll say, that's great, but I want to hear from your mistakes. I want to hear from, because that's where you learn. That's what made you stronger. I want to hear about that.
That's what made you who you
How
are.
often do you don't hear the real lessons. You only hear the success. It doesn't teach you anything, right?
I often say, Dennis, that we compare the worst of ourselves to the best of others when we're looking at social media. That's why I said, you know what, you're looking at their Showtime reel right there.
Yeah.
They may have had it harder when they were in your position than you are going through right now. Yeah. But you don't get to see that on social media. But if you knew that going in, you can take it for what it's worth and not kind of talk yourself into depression, thinking that you don't measure up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we are.
The more time people spend on social media, the more depressed they become, the more FOMO and fear they have. I think that it's a drug, right? When I was interviewed on CNN that one time, I said that Facebook was like cigarettes. It should be regulated. And if you ask the cigarette companies to make rules for themselves, they're not going to do it, right?
Right.
So we need to spend, I find myself addicted to social media. It's the last thing I often will do at night. It's often the very first thing, right? What's the first thing you do when you wake up before you even pee or whatever? It's probably check your phone, right? Yeah, everyone's guilty, right? And then, of course, you're going to check social media because you want to see, oh, what happened? Maybe somebody tagged me. I want to see how many likes my post got, right?
Right.
And that is a horrible addiction. Facebook has PhD trained scientists in psychology that have designed the algorithm for maximum addictive power. Think about that. You cannot win. Think about how much money, how much power they have, where it literally changes the chemical composition in your brain, the way they designed Facebook to maximize the endorphins that happen to get people to want to click like and manipulate the emotion. They have, they've done research in the newsfeed where they will show people different kinds of content as an experiment. So Facebook has admitted that some of the researchers, they published this without realizing that they were sharing some sensitive items. The research they published to show that they can configure the newsfeed to manipulate people's emotions. Isn't that incredible?
That's incredible.
And then once that research came out, that Facebook then deleted it and said, no, it was something else. And we were just testing. This is not, they tried, the PR machine tried to twist it into something else, but it was too late. The research already came out. They already published.
But even if you know about that, you still find yourself addicted to it. I mean, even you are saying that you find yourself caught up in it too. And I'm
the drug dealer. I'm getting high on my own supply.
You get high on your own supply, like Biggie Smalls would say. Well, even in that culture, I'm gonna drop in a few questions here that people wanted me to ask you. Like, for example, like, do you believe that social media has the ability to bring people together, and has it had the opposite effect in the long term? It's pretty much some things you've already touched on, but
it can go both ways. Look, technology can be used for evil. Think of fire, right? Fire you can use to burn people. Fire you can use to also cook a delicious steak.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so social media, if we use it the right way, by sharing our stories, by sharing knowledge, instead of trying to appeal to what people think we need to look like, then we're bucking the mold. The trouble is that if we act just like everybody else, we're going to be contributing to the problem. So we can use social media for good. For example, this morning I made a post on Facebook and I showed how a bunch of our ad accounts were disapproved. And Facebook each time said, nope, you're disapproved. It's permanent. We're not going to tell you why. And this is, don't ever try to run ads again on Facebook. And I'm a major player on Facebook.
Yeah.
So for them to tell me, I'm just a little guy, how dare you try to reject me, right? There's rejection again, but rejection is my secret weapon, because when I get rejected, I'm able to turn that around into something else.
That's right.
So what I did on Facebook was I shared the failure. So instead of sharing stories about how we've worked with multi-billion-dollar companies and done amazing things for them, I shared, I struggle just like you too, because our ad accounts get rejected too. And then
you know what, Dennis? I saw that post, and I had the effect of what you just mentioned just now. I felt to myself, because I've received an email from Facebook, stuff. So when I saw that, and I thought to myself, Dennis gets emails like that. He almost works for Facebook. He's an evangelist for Facebook.
Facebook comes to us for consulting, right? Facebook ads team would ask us for help. So we have people who Facebook come to our training on how to do Facebook ads, which is hilarious, right?
Yes.
And when we speak at the major conferences or at our conferences, we get applications from Facebook saying that they want to come speak, which is hilarious because I'll let some of them come in and speak at my events.
Right.
I'm thinking, wow, this is so. Anyway, you see the irony, right? Because often people are like this, and wow, even Dennis gets rejected too, right?
That's right. That's right. So, Dennis, how do you feel about the evolution of social media?
Social media in every channel has started from a group of people who were passionate about something, like MySpace with music, and Facebook started because people were passionate about rating other people's profiles, other women, how attractive they were. And we think about Clubhouse as a place for public speakers. Every social network started around people who really cared about one cause, and they had a small group of people that really wanted to share, that had the positive ethos of building everyone else up around an area of expertise and a goal that they had in common. You could look at Flickr, which is for professional photographers that were sharing tips on how to be a better photographer, how to get more gifts, how to get that perfect wedding shot.
Right.
People that really wanted to help each other. But with every social network, once it expands, right, the curse is that as it becomes popular, it attracts more and more people that are beyond the initial group of people that were very passionate around one topic. And the way we measure that from a technical standpoint is called density. So density, think about a very tiny, highly concentrated ball of people that are very close together. And we look at how many people are friends with each other and how many pieces of content they're sharing. So it's very, very dense. But once something expands, it becomes like a big balloon, like cotton candy, right? Imagine a marble. That's where it starts. And then it becomes this gigantic balloon that's empty, mostly inside. That's what happens when you have this kind of expansion. So we look at any kind of social media. When it expands, it becomes popular. The seed that caused it to be successful in the very beginning is also the seed that destroys it at the very end, because the power that caused it to explode like a bomb is the very thing that can potentially hurt a lot of people. But if it didn't have that explosive power, it could have never have reached millions of people. You take any social network and people will complain and they'll say, yes, well, if we look at, there's ones, for example, where there's live chat with other people, and then it becomes people sharing penises with each other or something offensive, right? All of these social, or Twitter has become a place where people argue about different things.
Yeah,
but it could be positive things as well. But this is what people don't understand, is that when a social network becomes this big, we need to then put our own filter on it.
Right.
In the same way that the social media networks create something that's called a filter bubble,
Yeah.
where it shows you what is most popular, and
Yeah.
it reinforces the things that you want. So if you click on things related to Donald Trump, it's going to show you more Donald Trump.
That's right.
Whatever you're clicking on and whoever you're with, it's going to amplify the negative of that. Because
Yes.
the system is always going to look, it's not because the system is evil, even though you could claim Mark Zuckerberg is evil.
Yeah.
The system just wants to expand. And the things that unfortunately, these negative emotions are the things that fuel the hate when it comes to these other networks. So when the stronger the filter, the stronger the social network becomes, the stronger our filter needs to become as well. And I believe that technology is something that we can use positively. So the first, you know what the first websites were on the internet, the kinds of content that were there? It was porn, right? And porn was the beginning of every major digital initiative. So when photos were first on the internet, what kinds of photos were on the internet?
I can see that being.
Yeah. And you can use this for
I
any
can
kind
see
of
that.
any kind of innovation in technology, in digital, started with pornography, right? I know, because I know a lot of these people. When I worked at Yahoo, and of course I had all the data because we built the analytics.
Right.
Guess what percent of the revenue that we had as Yahoo, as a major company? We were bigger than Google. What percent of our revenue was porn?
Man, I could imagine about 30%.
It was 30%. Yeah. But would most people know that, right? You probably don't think that.
Right.
And you think, like, why is it that so many
That's
people?
a lot. That's a lot.
And you think, maybe it's just a few people that are consuming the porn. No. I look at the search logs and I see doctors and teachers and garbage men and cashiers and just ordinary people. And that's because they get sucked into, they get trapped, they get addicted, right?
Right.
And it's not to single out porn. Some people, they're addicted to food.
So that really takes me to another space that I think has become more talked about now than ever, is the impact on mental health. The impact on mental health, Dennis.
Yeah.
How do you, I know there's a good side to social media, of course there is, but there's always that monster of it. But to the extent that it can be so bad. I'll tell you a quick story. There was a gentleman that I helped, get him. I helped him in setting up his business from start to opening his doors.
Yeah.
And I went to check up on him a few months into it. I saw that he was doing well, and suddenly he went quiet on social media. I'm like, I wonder how he's doing. So I went there in person to go check on him.
Yeah.
And I said, so how you doing? He goes, man, it's been really hard for me the last few weeks and the last couple months, to be honest with you. Every time I look at social media, I post really relevant content. Nobody likes it. And I see someone, that has 2 pictures, but they have 100,000 followers. I just feel like the product I'm giving, I wonder if people really appreciate it. And he's a new business. He's a startup guy doing all the things we told him in school he should do to make him a successful person. Now, mentally, he's beaten up.
Yeah.
And he's saying, if this doesn't work for me, I'm gonna just shut the doors in a month. I'm giving this 30 days, I'm gonna shut the door.
It's sad.
I mean, it's really sad. I mean, it has other effects to different people in a different context. But even on an entrepreneur who's supposed to be a fighter and have that relentless spirit that we talked about, the social media, they take it as reality.
Yeah.
They see it as people's true response to who they are. They assume that every follower they have is watching them. They don't understand they're competing with hundreds of thousands of people on that scroll on their feed.
Yeah.
They don't understand that. They think they watched me and they rejected me. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So how do you feel it's affecting people's mental health from your perspective?
I think it's generally horrible because most people don't know the antidote, and especially in COVID times where people are isolated and they're not seeing other people. Us as humans, we need food, water, shelter, and we need love. I think love is one of these key ingredients that people need and they neglect. And in a technology society, even in a busy city like Toronto, right? We're here in Los Angeles today. You might be around a lot of people. There's a lot of people nearby, but there's an incredible amount of loneliness.
Yes.
A lot of my friends, even the ones who are popular, they're very lonely. and they can be successful entrepreneurs or not. They're very lonely. And I think social media increases that unless you actively make one-on-one connections like you and I have made. And I believe that having fewer higher powered connections, 5 real friends, is way better than having 5,000 people. For example, I have 200,000 people across social media that follow me, right? If I add up all the different networks, I have 200,000 people.
Right.
But does that mean I have more friends or more friend power than someone who they're not even on social media, but they have 5 really good friends that if they needed to, in the middle of the night, they could call and would come over and help them, right? Coach them on their business, or to give them advice, or to deal with an issue where their baby is not sleeping, or, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I think that this social media has polluted the definition of friend. I think it's intentional, right? Really, right? Now friend is someone who's clicked a button to click like on your profile, right? Friend is anyone who follows you on Twitter. I don't really consider that to be a friend. I think we need to redefine friend as someone who we have a real relationship with. So I call you a friend, Amen, because we have met and we share common values.
Absolutely.
And we've done things together. But if you ask any of these other people on social media, they would say, oh, yes, I'm friends with Dennis. Are we?
Yeah. I've had a lady come to me once, and I was at Costco, and she came to me and said, oh, man. I was like, hi, how you doing? I didn't recognize who she was, but she complimented me on some of my work and said it affected her kid in a very positive way, which I was humbled by. Yeah. And then as we spoke, and she goes, I'm a friend of yours on Facebook. We're friends on Facebook. So, I thought to myself, wow, I don't know anything about you. You know more about me than I know about you, but we're friends on Facebook, So to some extent, there's a positive side to it where people feel as if they know you, and in a positive way, but it can also go the wrong way. I've had people that are upset with other folks just because they unliked a picture.
Yeah.
Or how many relationships have been broken because somebody liked a picture of a lady that they shouldn't have liked? You know what I'm saying? It is.
Well, you're a public figure. As a public figure, and you're a positive educator. You're not showing your lifestyle. You actually have a mission. You have a message, which is valuable, right? We need more people like you sharing these kinds of stories. But at the same time, you and I are friends with a lot of public figures. And we know that if you're a major figure and you're helping millions of, like, how many people have seen your content? Millions, right? If you are giving to millions of people, then you yourself need to be fed so that you have the source, because you can't give what you don't have. So if anything, you have an even higher need for love and to be able to take care of yourself, because there's so many other people that you have not met in person, but are depending upon you. So if your psychology, if your mental health gets affected by some kind of nonsense, we could accidentally infect millions of people. Between you and me and the friends we have, we could accidentally we could harm millions of people by being bad role models, basically.
That's right.
So if anything, we have to protect our mental health even more.
That's right. Yes, they say you can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Yeah.
You can't give out of what you don't have yourself. You can't truly express love if you don't love yourself. So a lot of folks, I was talking to a friend the other day, and I said, we're at a point on social media now where trying to look real has become the new real. It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, I'm being real, so I'm going to use the F word. I'm going to use that. I even see new motivational speakers on social media a lot. Now, if you use the F word and you use profanity to an extreme extent where it doesn't come out naturally,
right?
Oh, that guy's being real. He dropped the F bomb, and I'm like, is this where we're going as a society right now? Is this what I want my daughter watching? I want my kids watching. I mean, I can't even trust them on the kids' channel anymore because that guy's so real. He's down, he's hit because he's swearing left, right, and center. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm just getting old. I don't know what it is.
You remember when Being Real was wearing black, and all the people who were, trying to show they were not like everyone else was wearing black? And I said, you're wearing black just like all the rest of you people, nonconformists. And that's funny because you and I are being authentic, which means we are not. I mean, it's not like we're not looking at what's occurring in society, but we are being who we truly are. Mark Twain said that the key to success is to be authentic. Fake that, and you've got it made.
Well,
Which is
they
the
did a good
irony,
job
right?
of it. That's it. That's exactly right. How do you navigate through the enormity of content on social media? Because if you look on your feed,
Yeah.
you're being bombarded with the same things because they figured out that maybe you like skiing. All of a sudden, you get stuff on skiing nonstop. It's almost
Yeah.
frightening. You look at your email box
Yeah.
and you get spam from ski. How does that even happen? And how do you navigate through this noise?
Yeah. The way to do that is you need a higher filter power. So the amount of content that's available every year increases by an order of magnitude. So your time doesn't increase. But if now I forgot every day there's 230,000 days of YouTube videos added every single day. So you could never watch all of them. You would need lifetimes to watch. And
That's right.
The amount of things being produced, the number of social networks, the amount of overwhelm increases. And the way to combat that, I learned from my friend Michael Stelzner, who is the founder of Social Media Examiner. So he's the #1 person in the world of social media marketing. And he said this: choose very carefully who you have as friends, because that's what governs what you see in your feed. The people you subscribe to on YouTube, the people who you're friends with on Facebook, your followers on Twitter. And I remember we started doing some things on Clubhouse. And I said, hey, Clubhouse is full of this millionaires helping millionaires and people trying to become millionaires.
I saw that, yeah.
Right. And I said, my feed is full of all these people who are motivational speakers trying to tell everyone advice when they themselves have no idea what to do. Right.
That's right. That's right.
These 20-year-old life coaches.
Yes.
Right. The same, like Instagram is 20-year-old life coaches. And he told me, my feed is clean. My feed has exactly what I want in it, because I'm very, very picky about who I follow. And I unfollow all these other people so they don't pollute my feed. My friend Robert Scoble, who might be the most powerful person in technology reporting, he invented blogging, which is crazy. When Elon Musk came out with Tesla, the very first Tesla he had, he called up my buddy Robert Scoble for a ride. Right. This is a guy who understands Silicon Valley, and he uses almost no technology. When we are at his house or when we're having lunch, which is a huge honor, he doesn't have his phone out. We're eating Mexican food, which is his favorite. And we are talking and conversing and communing, and there's no technology. He doesn't feel the need to always be there on Twitter. Like, oh my goodness, I need to check my phone. What if something's happening? Oh, look, there's notifications on my phone.
Yes.
Nope. And he told me, this blew my mind. He said that because he narrowed, I think he had something crazy, like millions of followers, because he's the technology reporter. Every time there's a startup, you had to go through Robert Scoble because he's the guy. Like if Robert Scoble mentions you, then you could become a successful, that's like, he's the guy, right? He's been the guy for the last 20 years. And he said that in the last year, he unfollowed almost everybody on Twitter and Facebook. And I checked and I said, oh, he's still here. Oh, he didn't unfollow me. I thought, oh, maybe he would have unfollowed me. Maybe I'm too noisy. Maybe he doesn't consider me a value because he only has something like 500 friends now that he follows on Facebook, for example. And I'm, oh, thank goodness that, he didn't unfollow me of his hundreds of thousands of people on Facebook, And it's funny because we see people like Michael Stelzner or Robert Scoble and even Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg. These guys, they do not allow technology in their house. They don't allow their children to bring the phone into the bedroom or to the dinner table, because that's their way of, if anybody would know, they would know. These people, they would know.
Right.
So I would take
they have that's the point very much worth noting. They found a way to discipline themselves around the technology. This is where you invite the problems of technology by letting it just kind of exploit your lives. I mean,
if you like ice cream, would you say, I'm never going to eat ice cream again, ever?
Right.
No, just only one scoop, okay? Not the whole tub. Do not eat the whole tub.
How do parents regulate their kids on social media?
Well, now the smart thing is these different screen timers and locks where they only let you have half an hour on social media. Right? My business partner, Tristan, who's actually behind me, you can see, he has a
Tristan.
There he is.
Yeah, I see him all the time.
he has a filter on his, on his phone that only allows him a certain amount of time every day.
I'm taking note of the kind of people you keep around you, Dennis, because I'm getting to see that the people you have around you, it's kind of like an indication of the kind of person that you are.
Yeah, we're seeing Matthew Janusek this afternoon.
Yeah. And
We spent
Matthew
many years with
Jennison, the
Yeah.
CEO of Escape Fitness, he's a hell of a guy. I mean, that's another guy that talk about discipline. And he just turned 50, didn't he? Matthew just turned
Yes,
50.
he turned 50, but he doesn't look it, does he?
It doesn't look like 50, does it? I want to see
Incredible.
proof. I want to see proof from
Yeah.
Matthew. Tell Matthew I want to see his birth certificate. I want proof, you know. So, you know, as I look at this now and I think there's something else I want to talk about because this is something close to my heart, and then we'll move on to something else real quick.
Yeah.
And as you know, I'm a huge advocate for fighting against bullying. I started the Stand Up and Speak campaign against bullying. So cyberbullying. Social media has been a real vehicle for that. I mean, it has been the vehicle for that. And how do we manage this monster of cyberbullying? Because there are folks behind the screens that probably wouldn't even have the nerve to bully you in person, but now feel comfortable to do it behind, you know, the keyboard gangsters, we call them, right?
Keyboard warriors.
They go keyboard warriors and keyboard gangsters. So what's your thought on this? Because people are losing their lives, kids are losing their lives over this.
Yeah.
You know, so I know the suicide rate has gone up.
Yeah.
A whole lot, especially in the pandemic. So please touch on that for me. Let me know what your thoughts are.
I think cyberbullying is a big problem, and it's beyond the young adults who are more vulnerable to this.
Mm-hmm.
Even I get cyberbullied.
Yeah.
I was bullied by, I'm not going to go into the details, but this happens all the time. And I think the only way to do this is that we have to first understand that this behavior exists. Mm-hmm. Just like the sex trafficking, right? It's an invisible thing, or people think it's funny. I see it being perpetuated because some people believe that they need to stand up for themselves. Mm-hmm. And then they unintentionally, like, they become the victim, even though by saying they're the victim, they end up being the bully, and it creates a perpetual cycle where people are mistreating each other. Mm-hmm. The more positive messages we have that are being shared, like you're sharing, and I'm doing my best to emulate you and doing the same kind of thing, the more we can turn that tide and help people understand that you don't have to accept bullying or this mental torture that's why there's such an issue now with mental health. You don't have to accept that as being normal. We need to be able to lift other people up and out of these situations. And I think it comes from the simple step of mentorship. There's a lot of organizations around cyberbullying. There's rules that Congress is trying to make, and those are all good. But I think it's very simply, of your friends, ask them how they're doing. Tell them that, because a lot of them, you might say, oh yes, I love so-and-so, but if you don't tell them that explicitly, then you're weakening them, and they're not able to help other people because I've heard other people tell me, because I'll say thank you to them, or I'll say, oh, good job on the thing that you did, or just a little piece of encouragement. I'll take just a moment to do that. And I try to do that every day, just a few times. And people have told me just that thing made their day, that one thing. And they were struggling, but they didn't, and you would have never known because they didn't tell anybody about it. Right. And that one little moment of encouragement was really all it takes between being here on this planet versus not being on this planet. Mm-hmm. And when you realize that, then you realize sometimes I need to slow down a little bit. And social media and modern life is so fast. I think that people bully because they don't know any better. There's unconscious. They're like a bear that has a thorn in the paw. Right. And a good friend of mine, he told me that when people attack you and they try to hurt you, or they say bad things about you or whatnot, look beyond the anger into their heart, and what you'll see is fear. Wow. Right. And any bully's heart is fear. Right. And they really don't know any better. Insecurity, yes. And beyond, and when you look one step past the fear, what do you see? You see pain. So someone who's in pain has fear, and then they attack you. They make fun of you. They say things about it. But now when you can look several layers past the bullying, because of course they're hurting you, but look several layers past, and you see that they're in pain. Now all of a sudden you can see them as being injured, like someone who has a gunshot wound or they're in a wheelchair, but you can't see it physically, but mentally they're injured, they're handicapped. And so now, instead of like, oh, this guy's attacking me or saying bad things, you think this person is hurt. Like someone who's in a hospital, right? The person who's attacking you, just pretend that they're in a hospital, but mentally, you can't see it physically, but mentally they're in pain. Now it's like, how do I help this person, right? Instead of perpetuating this thing, because I've seen this before where somebody gets made fun of or they have a bad situation. Then the guy, he yells at his wife, and then the wife yells at the kid, and the kid kicks the dog, and the dog chases the cat. You know, it's
domino effect. Yes.
That's what happens with bullying.
Yeah.
But the way we get around that is we recognize the start of the cycle and we look past it and we see there's pain, right? When you see that person who's attacking you, they don't know any better. They're unconscious. They're the wild bear with the thorn in here.
Yes,
and you want to try to remove the thorn so that you want to help them now. You want to help the bully. The bully is someone who they do not have discipline like you and I have. They have no control. They're not strong, because if they were, they wouldn't say those things. And
a lot of people, that's right.
Our kids did this is how that person trying to bully you is actually smaller because they don't have self-control. They're like a wild animal.
And they always seem to want to require an audience, right? Bullies require an audience. Even it's the same with adults as it is in kids. If your boss is bullying you, there's usually other people around. They want to show their dominance over you. So if you are in the audience, and it'd be a note worth taking, that do not encourage a bully, because your silence makes you complicit. I mean, if you're quiet about it, you're encouraging that action. So because bullies need an audience. And I love what you said about changing the narrative to make it a narrative about not accepting. So do you have anything you want to say to folks out there? And the last group I would say to you to touch on, Dennis, is entrepreneurs starting off. For a new entrepreneur, get ready to start, Dennis. What would be your lasting advice for an entrepreneur?
Get a mentor. Find other people who have succeeded in doing the thing that you want, and do everything you can to work for them, to work with them, to get their advice. Don't worry about all the social media stuff. There's a lot of nonsense out there. Find a mentor who's done the thing that you want to do, and they'll help you. Basically work for them as an apprentice. That's your key.
Dennis, you're incredible. Thank you so much for your time today. Welcome, and thank you for being in the Amen Unbound.
Thank you, Amen.
Cheers. All the best.
My friend.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.